Can you hear me okay, Anna?
I can hear you great. Yeah, how's it coming through on your end?
Great, good. Um, yeah, so, welcome, Anna, to Scent Ventures and Anna Camacho at CORDA live on Instagram. I think we're just going to start this off with a prayer. I think it's just going to be a conversation, get to know each other better in our respective work, and share that with a broader audience. Let's just take a moment and invite the Lord into this time, into this space, into our conversation. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord Jesus, we invite you into this conversation. I ask you to breathe your Holy Spirit upon our words, our thoughts, uh, all those who are gathered here virtually. Inflame us with your love and your light. Help to shape this conversation for uh, just inspired by the image of Corda candles and the flame that burns, that your living flame of love may, Lord, be in this conversation and touch the hearts and minds of those who listen. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Father, Son, Amen.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, great to see you, Anna, in this context. I've had a lot of conversations over the past months,
Mhm.
um, and just looking forward to learning more about you and your work and how you got started and everything else. So I'd love for you just, if you just don't mind, you have people on here from Scent and from Porta Candle that are familiar with your work, but just tell us a little bit about what you do, how you found Porta, for our respective audiences that may be here.
Yeah, that's great. Is there any feedback on your end, or is the audio still coming through okay?
It comes through okay on my end. If you have any
Okay.
other things open, you may want to mute them on my end.
Yeah, got that. Okay. Um, yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about Corda. The story always starts with Saint Joseph. He's really I think the reason why we started and why we're still here, because our first full year of business was last year during COVID when things were just really challenging for everyone, and so it's amazing to actually be approaching our 2-year anniversary in a couple of weeks, and it really was just something over a number of years where I was in jobs with really good people, doing good work, but it wasn't creative at all. And it was always just like in front of a screen all day. And I really wanted to just work with my hands and put something good into the world that really like came from myself, or that was something that I could do kind of in a unique way. And so I just prayed to Saint Joseph for years and years and years, really. And it was amazing to just kind of have the experience of being faithful in prayer and um, to trust that even though there wasn't, that kind of creative work that I was longing for, that wasn't given to me, but it was still on my heart. So just to keep kind of trusting that to God through Saint Joseph and just saying, like, I feel like this is what you want me to do. I'm here when you're ready, or when you think I'm ready. And then, yeah, just again, one day in prayer, actually thinking about St. Joseph, I just had the idea to do candles where they were Catholic, but in only because the scent of them actually is directly connected to different saints in the faith. So there's a lot of great faith-based candle businesses out there, and a lot of times it's really beautiful artwork, or the name of the candle reminds you of the faith, but I wanted the actual like experience of burning the candle and smelling the scent for that really concrete connection to help you sort of dive into these holy men and women. And I think with our faith, it's so sacramental, right? Like You know, every single sacrament has words and matter, and you have to have both for it to be effective. And so, the fact that God became incarnate, like, and the way that the world and creation is just so good. Like, I love how this very physical thing actually can tie us to these spiritual realities. So, yeah, we're almost 2 years old on September 9th. And it's yeah, it's been so neat to just kind of see where we've been led in that time.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing some of your founding story. It's hard to believe it's,
Mhm.
yeah, 2 years you've grown so much, and
Mhm.
you know, have been, it's been built out a lot just in the past year. I've seen it, so it's just kind of amazing to
Mhm.
watch. Um, what, as an entrepreneur, is your first time starting a business, and what are some of the challenges that you faced, and how do you overcome them, or how do you deal with them?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And the same to you. I mean, I know it sent we started, I think, around the same time, like in 2019 or a little bit before, right? And that you've grown a lot and done a lot just in a very short period of time too. So that's been really amazing to see and be part of on my end. Gosh, in terms of like challenges, um, I would say I think a lot of it is just having a business with actual products and being the maker of those products. So we're dealing, you know, we kind of like have all of the pieces come through from sourcing the products, making them, labeling them, stocking them, you know, doing all the order fulfillment and shipping things out, and then taking care of all of our customers, you know, related to orders or just questions. And everything is done in-house. And I love that because I think well, first of all, like being a maker, like definitely comes first for me. And then just being able to offer, like, to connect with the folks who love what we're trying to do. Like, if we outsource that kind of stuff, like the customer service bit or the shipping, you know, it would make my day a lot easier, but it also would, like, especially as an e-commerce business, like we just lose all of that connection with people, I think. And so I think too, like, it's when you have the hard things or the sort of not fun things, I mean, that's just kind of life, right? You don't get to like check out of like doing your own dishes or making your bed in the morning. It's not the most glamorous part of life, or doing laundry, but like it's just what you do and it's how you take care of what's been given to you. And so I kind of want to hold on to those things that maybe aren't my favorite, but because it's also like, yeah, just part of what it takes to do what we do. So, yeah, are there anything that like comes to mind when you think of like entrepreneurship and challenges?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I know there was some
Mhm.
feedback. Is it a little better on our end now?
I'm not hearing any now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, great.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I think the challenges are, yeah, on different fronts with being an entrepreneur and starting something. The business front, the personal front, the spiritual front. It's just hard, and that's something that we hear a lot from the entrepreneurs we support. Community, we're a community of Catholic entrepreneurs, people that run
Mhm.
nonprofit organizations, but also for-profit entities, and so I hear in a lot of conversations these different challenges that people face, whether it's growing revenue or figuring out how their product can fit, or the personal challenges of balancing and integrating their family life with hustling and starting
Mhm.
something. And so, but I
Mhm.
think that's a theme. It really a big theme is, I think, around, it's very isolating, the journey. It can
Mhm.
be a lonely ride, and especially during COVID, and
Mhm.
that's something I'm very sympathetic to, because it's something I faced myself. And this journey I started sent after I discerned out of religious life. So I was in a very kind of intense community, living in monasteries, and then went straight into kind of figuring out what Sent would look like. And then
Mhm.
COVID hit, and I was just working on starting it by myself in a
Yeah.
basement,
Yeah.
and um,
And like going through all this transition, like personal transition,
and a lot
professional,
of
like, Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. And so there was some dark nights in that, but I think, I mean, for me, like some of the grace of that, I think, is also that I had and have the opportunity to experience in a very like visceral way what I think a lot of the entrepreneurs go through.
Mhm.
And so it makes me kind of like a more tender heart about it, because I know the pain and difficulty of trying to start something, especially if you're doing it kind of on your own. And so, um, I'm very compassionate to people that are having that journey themselves. And so, maybe the Lord kind of allowed me to go through some of that so that I can be more of an advocate and supporter to others, So,
Yeah, yeah.
well,
I
my,
think that really comes through with Scent, that there is this real level of understanding. It's sort of like for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, which is one of the things that I love about it. But it's such a good, there's such good structure there, which I think as entrepreneurs, when you're wearing so many different hats and, there's a million fires in front of you, like having something that's structured and also like that's modeled and like no, this is possible. Like this is a good thing, and yes, there's chaos, but like it just has been really good, I think, to see what you've created and sort of have that like ripple out into Corda, in lots of different ways that I just didn't expect. So I appreciate you kind of, yeah, taking all of those things that you lived through and learned, and letting that inform what you're doing with Scent, because I do think it's been bearing a lot of fruit.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
it's such a blessing having you part of our community. Just a couple other bullet points on Sense. So we support
Mm.
over 50 Catholic entrepreneurial leaders now in our community, help with kind of business support, but also community and spirituality as a part of how we support these leaders, because we believe that leaders like you are crucial to how the Spirit is inviting the church to renew today, to have an entrepreneurial mindset to mission and spreading the gospel or addressing needs and problems in the world. So, and something this emerged for me out of a study of looking at renewal leaders and saints throughout church history, like whether it's Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuits, or
Yeah.
Mother Teresa, who founded Missionaries of Charity. These leaders identify needs around them and hungers in their midst, and they try to address them, whether that's building new schools or addressing the needs of the poorest of the poor, or helping people grow in their spirituality, which you're seeking to do. And so, we want to build up leaders like that today, like you. And so, in community, though, which is so key to our faith and how the Lord, and wanted His church to continue. So it's a little more about sin, but I want to get back to you, and also like would would love to hear a little bit about your experience in Scent, and why you joined Scent, and a little bit of like maybe some of the people you've met in Scent, or how it's been helpful or even not helpful for you too, because that's good feedback as well.
Yeah. Which that's one of the things that, yeah, I appreciate is, yeah, it's always a conversation. Like you're always trying to, I mean, I think it's that entrepreneurial side of you where you're like, how can we get better? Like, how can we improve? And maybe it's a little tweak or maybe it's a big shift. But yeah, that's something that really resonates with me. That has really been amazing. You were talking about kind of being in a little bit of a dark night, or feeling isolated, and when we started, it was just me, and I was doing all the things, which when you're little and nobody really knows about you yet, like that's totally fine. And I was really grateful for that time. When as more people started to learn about it, and then we just got busier and busier, things, yeah, it was really hard. And you just kind of feel the weight of things and the stress of things like more and more. And so when I would look to my friends and family and people that, I just normally talk about life with, there wasn't really anyone who could say like, oh, I understand. Like I get what you're going through, or this is normal. These are just growing pains. Like, don't freak out. You're not, failing. It's just like it's gonna hurt right now. Like, that wasn't yeah, kind of empathy like you were talking about, or understanding of where I was. It just wasn't a resource that I had at the time. And so it was something that I wanted, and I looked at a lot of secular things because there's a million like coaches or mastermind groups or Facebook, groups and that sort of thing. And there were good like kernels everywhere, like lots of people doing really helpful things, but it still like wasn't complete because for me, and I think for so many people, like you don't check your faith like at the office door. It impacts how you hire or how you treat your vendors, or what your customer service looks like, or even what you're selling, what you're offering. Like the fact that quality is really important to us isn't just like a throwaway line. It's because like no, like the thing should be good, and it should be good kind of for itself. And when I try and talk about that with like a couple of mentors that I was able to work with, or like in other groups, about like all this, just like the church, right? Like our understanding of social justice, our understanding of the dignity of the person and the dignity of work. Like again, it was just like no one got it at all, and then you just start feeling like even more isolated. And so for me, I don't even remember, I think, how I found Scent, but it truly like felt like an answer to prayer, because I think the first focus is the spiritual side, but it's not like, well, that's over here, and we kind of talk about that, and then we like get to the business. It's actually like integrated, and I think the fact that we really deep dive into the lives of the saints and see how actual people live this out in a real way with real challenges and we're holy because of that, is just really, really special. And I think that that's just kind of meeting the saints in this way. Like I was pretty scandalized a little bit when like with just thinking about like Mother Teresa as like an entrepreneur. I was like, wait, that's like what, or like Mother Cabrini, or these other people who, but they were, I mean, we were just talking about Mother Cabrini last month or something, and like she had like 50 institutions going at the same time that she started from scratch, and a whole team of people, under her, and to realize that like you can have a business or have an organization, and that is your path to holiness,
Mm.
and that there's so many saints that God was like, here is your task, like go and do this for the world, and in a very active way, I think has really been life-giving to me, and just a real sign of hope, because it kind of, I don't know, do you ever feel that where it's kind of like there's this conflict of like, yes, I want to do good things and I want to serve people in the world, but I like, how do I do that, and do that in a way that also like brings me closer to God, like in a kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah. Well, just hearing you say that about the Saints, like it just kind of just reinvigorated kind of that like first love for me and how I got inspired
Mm-hmm.
by them, and you kind of get in the trenches and do things, you kind of lose some of that fervor. And just the way you put it, there was a freshness to how you're seeing them, and that kind of enkindled a freshness for me too. So thank you for like,
Yeah.
I don't know, sharing some of that. That's really
Mhm.
beautiful. And I think I don't know. I think that's part of the journey on this earth, right? It's
Yeah.
we're there, like the kingdom, like our Lord says, the kingdom of heaven is among you, is in your midst, like it's here now, but not yet at the same time. And I think it's that way with anything we have, whether it's relationships, or work. It can be both. Um, I think that's a journey for us, and how it can continually draw us to glorify God and glorify ourselves, in a healthy way with God at the center, and serve others. But there's always, I think, a tension in that of, just getting through it, or the drudgery, or having us kind of turn in and away from God, because we become anxious or stressed or whatever it is, right? And so, but I think that's part of how the Lord's designed it too. That it's kind of a training ground and a preparation for the for the bliss of heaven. Um,
hmm hmm
you know,
Yeah.
so
I just one of the people in my small group, in my son's small group, we were talking about Maximilian Kolbe because his feast day was recently, and she actually was able to go to Niepokalana, which is the like Marian town basically that he started in Poland. And she was, at their peak, there were 800 Franciscan monks living there, and he was the head. And she said of all of the things that she saw at this beautiful town dedicated to Mary with all of, this religious order, she said the most inspirational thing that she saw was his org chart that they had preserved, this huge like organizational chart that he had on the wall of like this brother is doing this and this priest like this is his task, and he had everything like lined out and ordered. And it's just such a like human
mm,
thing, and to know that Saint Maximilian, like, this is how he was able to fulfill the task that God had given him. And yeah, it's just, I think what so many of us can relate to too, that like that's what any organization like can benefit from. And here was this monk in the 1930s, doing it with his community. It was really neat to hear.
yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm gonna have to do a case study on him, and I think
Yeah.
I think he may be the patron saint of entrepreneurs too, and which is
Yeah.
interesting. Another thing about him is like he was head of this friary, and he
Mhm.
founded friaries and missions. He founded a media conglomerate, if you will, at the time.
Yeah.
At radio
Yeah.
station. I mean, he was very avant-garde as an entrepreneur, yet he lived in a monastery and wore old brown robes from
Mhm.
the Middle Ages. And
Mhm.
yet he was canonized not for that, but because of his ultimate sacrifice of giving his life in the concentration camp at Auschwitz. And I think that's in part of the mystery of how God works too. Is he calls us to different missions at different points in our life, and they're all he says to he who is faithful in little things will be entrusted with greater things. And I think Maximilian is a great example of, like, it seemed like big things at the time that he was working on because the Lord had called him to that, but like the biggest
Mhm.
and final thing was how he gave his life. And I think that'll be for all of us, is kind of at the end of the day,
Mhm.
surrendering our lives to God, to be called to heaven. And so it's all a journey, and um, I think Maximilian's a great example on different fronts. Yeah.
And one of the things that too that I love about him is, so he actually started like the Militia Immaculata when he was a
Yeah.
seminarian,
Oh,
and like had
wow.
no traction for like over a year. Like it just went like, you can imagine all
Right.
these young men so on fire, in love with Our Lady, and they're like, we're gonna start a club, and then it like goes nowhere. But he's faithful to it, and faithful to it, and faithful to it, and he knows it's what he's supposed to do. And then like it takes off. I mean, it's crazy. Again, like at their peak, their daily readership of their publication was 1 million people.
Really.
Like, and just think about like printing off 1 million copies of something every single day, not just printing and distributing, but like creating it, writing the content, laying out, the printing. Like they did that every day. And but only because he said yes, kind of way back when, and just let God like take him where he was supposed to go. So yeah, I'm excited for that
That's
case study. That'll
Yeah.
be
Well, I
great.
got a lot of good content from this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like he was just tweeting stuff every day. He like had to print
Mhm.
things. Yeah, this is cool. Great. Yeah, awesome. But some of this also reminds me of the first conversation I had with you. I remember very vividly just learning about you and your work, and I remember you said something that stuck with me, and I'd love to just kind of bring it out here, and maybe you can unpack it a little for us. I was asking about your work, and you said you wanted to do work that, I don't remember the exact words, but something to this effect, kind of help to bring out the dignity of the human person through work, and so do work that built you up and brought you closer to God, instead of pulling you away from God and tearing you down. So since the beginning, it seems like this has been a very intentional part of how you make all the candles by hand, and
Mhm.
it's there's probably prayer that's poured into them also. And so, how has that been, thinking about the dignity of work, been part of how your journey in Corda, and maybe how has that changed over time, especially as you've maybe scaled and grown bigger
Mhm.
and had to think more about, operations, logistics, supply chain, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's actually really came from I think learning about food, um, which is interesting because when I first got married and we're starting, a life together and bringing kind of our family of origin, all of these different things, and of course, like food is such a big part of that, and how much do you spend on groceries and where do you shop and how do you prepare and is it yeah, just and we came
Yeah,
from very different backgrounds. And we started learning more about like the food system and how a lot of it has just been commodified and plants and the earth and animals maybe aren't taken care of in the way that we should for their own good and for the good of kind of the world and ourselves. And it just really kind of stuck with me, right? That like creation is good. It's so good. It's such a gift. And we have a real responsibility there. But also like to that which we're doing, but also the people who are doing the work, right? To the animals, but also to the people. And if you fast forward about, gosh, 10 or 12 years to when I was trying to start building Corda. I knew for myself, especially coming out of work where I was in front of a screen and kind of just moving things from point A to point B all day long. I was like, gosh, that like I don't feel more like myself. I don't feel more like human or happier or anything. Like at the end of the day, I'm glad to do something to like help other people, through the work, but it wasn't like fulfilling at all. It was kind of like draining or kind of killing my soul a little bit. And so I think that's why wanting to work with my hands and to see like at the end of the day you can look and say like these are good things that exist now that didn't that I got to be part of and that you then get to sorry you then get to take these good things and share them with others. And I think that kind of remembering like what is the purpose of work, right? It's and maybe I'll step back like from the Second Vatican Council, like the glory of God is man fully alive, right? Which John Paul II would quote all the time. And um how do you design work? How do you design a work day in a way that actually like makes people more fully alive? And we've all heard the stats about how disengaged people are from their workforce, how much like actual work gets done in a 40-hour work week. And um, I didn't want anything that was kind of dehumanizing. And there's lots of ways that you can automate the candle making process. In our process we actually like maybe build in a lot more work than what other makers do because it's so customized to the saints and everything, but it also gives us the opportunity to like you have I don't know, you just like have this pride in it or this like fulfillment in something that like that you've made, and then when you get feedback from other people that like it meant something to them or it's helped them create a routine and a ritual for their prayer or it comforted them when they were going through something, and it's not just like something we bought and we resold. It's something that like came from who we are, like from our own hands. So I don't know if that actually answers your question, but you have to protect that. I think it's really easy to say, like, yes, we could lower our labor costs if we did XYZ, or we could have a better margin overall if, we did this instead. And those aren't bad questions or it's actually good to constantly be like thinking through like is the business healthy and are you running it in a sustainable way, but to put people first. And I think that starts with like what they do on the job every day. It's not just like, oh, well, I don't know. Like, yeah, what are they actually doing when they're there? I think, and what am I doing too? Like, what does my day look like? So that's kind of where, like, what I wrestle with on a regular basis. So,
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And just I mean, just a rich lineage in our faith, and I think it's just part of how God's designed us too, right? I mean, since the
mhm.
beginning of human civilization, we've been working with our hands in some fashion.
Yeah.
And then, I think of like the Benedictines and Ora et Labora and
Mhm.
work in prayer, and the monks tilling fields and making things with their hands, or all the families throughout civilization that have wash clothes themselves, or they probably made candles with their hands, or
Yeah.
other artifacts, building furniture. Saint Joseph, you mentioned at the
Mhm.
beginning, like imagine him building, creating things with his own
Mhm.
hands, and so it's beautiful to have. I think there's just a lot of alignment there with how anthropology of the human person, of how God's designed us, and then also the just rich
Yeah.
spiritual lineage of all the things that have been created. And then God is the ultimate creator too. Like He
Mhm.
creates us and creates the world, and
Yeah.
it's just I think it's just a rich, fertile ground for spiritual fruitfulness in the work that you're doing. And so it's just very beautiful how you've been so thoughtful and even philosophical about it. It's super cool.
The
Um,
word manufacture, which to me is kind of like, "Oh, I don't like that word." Like you think of assembly lines or like, belching smoke or whatever, but it actually is Latin for handmade. I realized recently because manus is the word for hand
mm,
and factum is the word for make. So when you put those together, it's manufacture. So I thought that was, yeah, it's like it's what we've been doing for forever. And it when you talk about kind of like a craft tradition or artisanal tradition, and like it's true, like you're part of something, and then you just try and like carry it on. So it's definitely a gift, I think, to do it.
that's beautiful. I didn't know that about
Mhm.
the etymology of manufacture.
Yeah.
That's cool
Yeah.
too. Covering a lot of ground on this chat. I
Yeah.
like it. Good. Well, we're gonna be kind of, would love for you to
Mhm.
share, if you have any advice for entrepreneurs or people that are thinking of starting an organization or company, how would you, what would you say to them based on your experience?
Yeah, I actually would pass on some really good advice that I heard in a scent workshop. And it was someone who has run his own company, and um, he kind of had this idea, right? And he was like, I want that to exist in the world, and I'll just do it, right? Like I'll do it myself. But what he realized is he really needed to think about what his day to day would look like, and that's what you're saying yes to. And so I think we can get so excited about these great ideas that we have, and um your creative wheels are turning, and you do want them to exist into the world, which is all good things, and but maybe like your role is business owner or founder, and like you'll do all of the things, or maybe you have this idea and you take it somewhere else, for someone else to make it, and they license it from you or something. Like there's lots and lots of ways to be an entrepreneur. It's not simply running the business or doing the day to day, or maybe you do that at first, but like eventually you need a director of operations so that you can keep doing the creative, or vice versa. And so just there's so many different paths. There's so many different ways. But I think what you've hit on with Scent about surrounding yourself with really good people, um, understanding that the spiritual life, like if that's not alive, your works will be dead. So like really starting and kind of infusing everything with prayer, and like having that right relationship. And then just trusting, like being open to saying yes to something, even if like Maximilian, like you don't see the fruit for a while, or maybe God at some point tells you, like, thank you for doing that. Like now it's time to do something else. Or this is, you say yes and it turns into something that you never thought it would be, but it actually feels most right, which is kind of where we are with CORDA right now. I always thought it would just be me and like, just like almost like I never thought it would be like a full-time job. And we actually have several employees now. There's lots of people who are able to help us. And I was always like, there's no way. Like, I never want to manage anyone ever again. And instead, it's been just an incredible, incredible gift to like have this team of people who love what we're doing, just like I do. So saying yes to something and then like just holding on, like seeing where it goes, and yeah, just trusting that like doors will open or doors will close. Yeah,
Mm, that's
yeah.
beautiful. That's
What
beautiful.
are your what are your words of wisdom?
I don't know if I have those, but yeah, I think I don't know if I have much new to add to what you said. I think when starting something out, especially if you're serious about your faith and your relationship with God, it's just like bringing it to Him and listening and asking Him to reveal it, reveal the path for it, like just that discernment. If that's really what God's asking, or if it's something that He may be, if it's more of like you trying to lead, which isn't necessarily bad either. I think it's just like even if you are like, I really want to do this, it's like bring it to the Lord and see if it's kind of confirmed by Him, and listen to
Yeah,
where He may be, either kind of nudging you in prayer, or maybe He brings other people in your midst that kind of confirm that in different ways, and just inviting Him to be the business partner with you if that's what He wants, and so that it's something that's really good for you, your soul, and for others that you come in contact with, but also not to be afraid of it either. And
yeah,
um,
yeah. That's a good point.
any last things you'd like to share, Anna, with people that may be listening, or either live or later on?
Yeah, I mean, for the folks who are listening, just thank you because I think it means that you're here because you care about the relationship between faith and work, um, wanting to, yeah, to do something good in the world in a way that reflects the glory of God. And I mean, just to like be open to that call, I think is really amazing. And I would say, yeah, there's really good support. There's really a lot of encouragement along the way. And I mean, I would check out Scent because you guys are doing a lot of good things. And yeah, just if anybody has any questions afterwards, feel free to DM me or something. But really grateful to. I always love talking with you, John, and I think you just have such a just a beautiful heart for life and for the world. And I always learn something. I always walk away happier after talking with you. So thank you for the invitation today.
Well, likewise, it's been a great joy. It always is a great joy. And
Yeah.
likewise, if anyone wants to reach out to me or to Sent, we'd love to have a conversation or see if there's a way we can support you in your work. And just honored to be here with you, Anna, and look forward to keeping the conversation going. And both of us, this is our first time on Instagram Live. We both confessed to downloading the Instagram app on our phones right before this. So
For
I
this.
hope it hasn't been too many glitches in the way. But
Hmm.
we both lean towards the aura labora more than the
Yeah.
technology, but we're getting there. So,
Yeah. Thanks so much, John.
all right,
Thanks everybody watching.
all right. God bless everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.